Good morning, everybody. It's nice to almost see you. It's quite blinding here, so excuse me when I squint. Conference participants, I believe that it's my job now to talk to you a little bit about some of the actions that contracting parties to the OSPAR Convention have agreed to take to help deal with this problem that we've been hearing about. And Stephanie has set me up really nicely to be able to pick up the story, and we'll go a little bit more into detail about the issue in the OSPAR context and the genesis of the work and the genesis of the Regional Action Plan, in fact. So it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much to the conference organisers for inviting OSPAR to be here. And with no further ado, we'll get started. So just to make sure we all know where we are and who the OSPAR Commission is, who's involved, who are the contracting parties to this international agreement, and where it is that we're talking about. There's a little map at the top. You see it goes from the North Pole all the way down the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and then across to the southern tip to the Straits of Gibraltar. So it's an enormous area, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later in the context of what that means in terms of what the Regional Action Plan is. But I just wanted to make sure from the get-go that we all know what we're talking about and where we are. And of course that Iceland is one of the contracting parties to this convention. So marine litter was first put on the OSPAR agenda by Sweden in 1994. And the aim at that point was to reach a common understanding on the nature and scale of what the problem was, and also what could be done about it within the context of OSPAR. From that point, marine litter was put within the programme that OSPAR has on monitoring and assessment. And this really set the stage for the cooperation between the OSPAR countries for dealing with the issue of marine litter. We've heard quite a lot now about what marine litter is, and it comprises a whole range of stuff that we discard in various aspects of our society. But again, it's the plastic that is really very, very dominant, and almost 90% of the litter that is found on the beaches in the OSPAR beach litter monitoring surveys is plastic. So OSPAR ministers, when they met in Bergen in 2010, agreed that this wasn't adequate, this wasn't a good situation, and that something needed to happen, and committed at that point that actions and measures would need to be taken in order to achieve a significant reduction. This was put then into the Northeast Atlantic Environment Strategy, which essentially is a roadmap for the OSPAR countries to help fulfill the obligations under the convention between 2010 and 2020. And so at that point, the objective of having a substantially reducing marine litter in the OSPAR maritime area to levels where properties and quantities do not cause harm to the marine environment. You'll recognise that there is a very similar wording to the wording that Stephanie showed us a minute ago on the wording for the EU MSFD descriptor. So from this starting point in 1994 through to 2010, there were already a large number of projects that were being undertaken both at the national level by the countries of the Northeast Atlantic, and also collectively. There's the monitoring work on the plastic in former stomachs, initiatives for removal of plastics and litter through the Fishing for Litter initiative. And as you can see from this slide, Stephanie also talked about the plastic in the former stomach and the ecological quality objective, with a target of having 10% of birds to have less than 0.1. And this is a graph on the left here to show how far over in many regions the results came in. That the amount of plastic is far in excess in all regions of the Northeast Atlantic. And that wasn't good. That's clearly not a good situation, and something has to be done. And it was agreed that more should be done. The fact that the oceans are dynamic, the fact that the currents are taking the water masses and everything contained within them across borders means that the only way to deal with this is through cooperation between the countries. On the 27th of June this year in Cascais, the countries that are contracting parties of the OSPAR Commission agreed to the Regional Action Plan for managing and prevention of marine litter. This is a culmination of an awful lot of work and a massive step forward. I'm going to come back to that, but again, just very quickly, we've seen this slide now, we've seen who's involved, but I just wanted to put up on the screen here just the main objectives. Unfortunately, my colour scheme looks to have been a poor choice, but the main objectives of OSPAR: prevention and elimination of pollution, protecting the marine environment against adverse effects of human activities, safeguarding health, human health that is, and conserving marine ecosystems. So within all of these objectives, you can very clearly see where the question of marine litter fits into the work of the Convention. In the Northeast Atlantic Environment Strategy that I mentioned previously, the work concerning marine litter fits into the thematic strategy on biological diversity and ecosystems, and is one of the many human activities that is dealt with under the Convention. He always likes to come and save the day. Although he's suffering a little bit here as well from the effects of marine plastics. Just before I move on to the Regional Action Plan, just two things that I should mention about the way OSPAR works that is significant to this Regional Action Plan and how it will be implemented in the future. So OSPAR works through consensus. That means that all the countries around the table have to come to an agreement. So the adoption of the Regional Action Plan has been agreed by consensus by all the countries and all the contracting parties of the Convention. The other thing is that OSPAR works by a lead country approach, so that a country takes forward the different elements of work and champions them, bringing the other contracting parties and observers along. And in this case, in fact, it was Germany that was the lead country, and in fact, Stephanie that has been leading a lot of the work. So yes, these things are important to note when we talk about what it is and what this means. So the starting point for the Regional Action Plan goes back to the agreement of the Honolulu Strategy, which we've heard about. And that is a framework for comprehensive and global efforts to reduce the ecological, the human health and the economic impacts of marine debris across the world. Following the agreement of that back in 2011, as you saw, the Regional Seas Conventions were asked to contribute to the 2013 European Conference and outline the needs for regional action plans and how to take forward regionally coordinated programmes and measures, in part as a contribution to the EU Marine Strategy Framework Directive. So, see what we've got now. Yes, something that's important here is that the scale of the problem is something that crosses all sectors of our community and our society. There are environmental issues associated with it, economic, health and cultural. And as you see from the slide on the screen, the sources of this marine litter are very broad. Not only do they affect all these sectors, have an impact on the sectors, the sources are coming from these sectors, but also these sectors are going to have to be a part of the solution to the problem. So the Regional Action Plan sets out a plan to be applied to the whole of the OSPAR maritime area, and by implementing collective action will substantially reduce marine litter from both the sea and land-based sources. It recognises that there will need to be participation from a broad range of stakeholders, including international organisations, private sector, NGOs, and others, industry, and general public as well. The Regional Action Plan is divided into 4 sections which set out what it's hoping to do, the type of actions that are going to be implemented, how these are going to be measured and assessed to see how well we're doing, and also, and critically, who's going to be doing what and when, the implementation plan. It's a flexible tool, and it's also meant to be implemented at different levels. So it's designed to be implemented, some of the actions collectively by the countries under the auspices of the OSPAR framework. Some are actions that contracting parties can take forward nationally as part of their national programmes and measures under the Marine Strategy Framework Directive or under their national management regimes. And then thirdly, there are also actions that fall under the competence of others. Stephanie introduced some of the types of actions that we're talking about. So, for example, as collective actions, multinational projects with the fishing industry and with competent authorities to develop and promote best practice in relation to marine litter and what happens to litter coming from those sectors. Reduction of the consumption of single-use plastic bags and their presence in the environment. And also developing a common communication strategy to help communicate messages across the region. At a national level, an example is we're seeking cooperation with the river and river basin authorities. As you saw, the amount of litter that is coming into the sea from rivers, it's important to tie up actions that are happening in the marine environment with those actions that are happening on the land and coming in through the rivers. So, what do we do next? We've got a regional action plan. It's available on the front page of our website. I encourage you to go and have a look, have a good read through it. There's a lot of information in there. But agreeing a regional action plan is the first step. We've decided what we want to do and who's going to do it. But the real big deal is going to be actually getting on and doing this, implementing the plan and starting to see the results. The scope of the Regional Action Plan is wide. It's going to be a challenge, firstly identifying where you start. As we heard right at the beginning, it's a massive problem. But we will find the where to start. And there are also many sources, as I've said, of sources of litter from many sectors. It will require OSPAR to have a clear understanding of which are the elements of the Regional Action Plan that lie within its competence and where there are actions that should be undertaken by others or in partnership with others. It would be a challenge within the OSPAR family to ensure that those partnerships are created. And sometimes they may be new partnerships that haven't traditionally been found in the past. So we're now at the next step, the getting on and doing it bit. And in terms of what we're getting on and doing, the next step is to have a workshop. There'll be a workshop happening actually in the beginning of October in The Hague, where all the task managers responsible for the implementation of these actions that are due in a first tranche, the start point, is going to be taking place, as well as putting into action the communication strategy. And then secondly, there's going to be a meeting between all of the regional seas conventions that are developing marine litter action plans to look and to sit together and share progress and experiences, and also look at how between the regional action plans there are actions that could be undertaken in common. So we've got some exciting times ahead, some good challenges, and hopefully in future, well, in the not too distant future, there'll be some good results to report and some significant effects in decreasing the amount of litter that enters our marine environment in the North East Atlantic. As I said, information is available on the website. The address is now on the screen. I encourage you to have a look, and I thank you for your attention.